Let's talk about the daddy wound. Let's talk about that wound that never healed, that just sitting there, doormat, just sitting there. All the effects of it rise to the top. All the effects of it shows up in your behavior, your relationships, but no one talks about. Matter of fact, if you mention it, the first thing most people will say is, "Oh, it didn't matter. I don't care that he wasn't there." Who told you it didn't matter? I bet you the person that told you that your dad, not being there for you didn't matter because they also have a daddy wound that they have been taught to ignore, or that it didn't matter also. But that daddy wound, not just boys have daddy wounds, but that's another video. Women have daddy wounds too, okay? So let's get into the transference of pain, how you transfer your own pain onto your own children. Specifically, I'm talking about girls right now, daughters. You transfer your own pain. You tell them that they daddy wasn't shit. He ain't shit because your daddy wasn't shit and your mama daddy probably wasn't shit. So you tell them that they wasn't shit. Meanwhile, you chose the daddies that's not shit, but you don't take any responsibility for that. So meanwhile, the child never learns how to deal with the daddy wound because it's not something that's talked about. So you choose to ignore it like it doesn't exist. So I think I told everybody my story, how my father wound up on the doorstep at 19. He had been there before, and I bust out in these tears. And if you had asked me any time before that, I'd have told you that I had a very happy childhood, which I did. My childhood was fantastic. Okay, I'm going to tell you that right now. It was fantastic. But if you had asked me, was I hurting from my father not being there, I'm sure that I would have told you no, that it didn't matter, because I was so loved and so happy that I didn't know that it mattered. But when I saw him on them doorstep and I bust out on them tears, thank God I had enough insight to realize that why was I crying? Like, I had to really start soul searching myself to find out what it was. And I found out that the daddy wound did exist for me. My mother didn't have a daddy wound. I don't believe. Her father took care of her, and her mother and father, although they were married, eventually they did break up. But my mother never taught us to hate our father at all. But we definitely had pain from him not being there. We didn't feel like we were good enough. So this is part one of my daddy wound, and I'll be back with part two.